movies. I do these videos every single... What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Justin. Thank you so much for stopping by. In today's video, like you saw in the description, this will be my monthly What I've Been Watching video. I do these videos every month. It gives me a chance to talk about movies that I either didn't have time to talk about normally for a review, or just to talk about movies that I wouldn't normally talk about on this channel. This channel is mainly dedicated to genre and horror movies, but it's not all I watch, so this is a good way for me to talk about movies that I just normally wouldn't talk about. So this gives me a chance to recommend good movies to you, and also to help you steer clear of maybe some movies that I wouldn't suggest watching to my viewers. Now, on this channel, I don't just do recaps, I also do top 10 lists, movie reviews, trailer reactions, unboxings, retro toys and collectibles, all kinds of good stuff. That sounds like fun to you. Definitely take a look at my other videos and maybe even think about subscribing, but definitely give this video a like. It's a simple, free, and easy way to support any content creator that you watch on YouTube. With all of that said, let's jump right into the video. I will be using Letterboxd to go through all my movies. It's the app I use to keep track of everything I watch. It's a really cool app. It is a free app, but there's a pro version if you don't want ads. It's got a really nice diary feature to keep track of everything you watched, as well as leave reviews. You can follow people. If you follow me on here, look me up. I'll link it below, and I'll follow you back. You can leave your reviews, follow other people, find new movies. You can create playlists and watch lists, top 10 lists and stuff. It's a really cool app, so I definitely suggest checking it out. So that's what I'll be using. Beverage here.
Careful, man, there's a beverage here.
I watched a lot of really bleak movies this month, movies that I'm going to struggle to give plot synopsis without spoiling anything, so I'm going to do my best to kind of be vague with these titles, because there's a couple of them here that it would be really hard to explain fully without just kind of telling you play by play what happens in the movie. So I'm going to do my best, but I'm going to stay vague on a couple of these, but I'll tell you whether or not I think you should watch them. First up, I watched The Shed. Now, this was a movie that I had seen a lot of people talk about. I had high hopes for it, and although I didn't dislike the movie, it kind of fell a little flat for me personally. It was an interesting premise. It starts out with the guy who gets bit by a vampire. It's actually Brad from Pulp Fiction. He plays the vampire. After he gets bit, he starts going through changes, and he realizes the sun is hurting him. It's burning him, so he's got to find refuge, and he finds this shed in the back of this house. In this house lives a son or grandson of this really like alcoholic father figure or grandfather. I can't remember who he is. The kid discovers this vampire in his shed, and him and his buddy, who are kind of like nerds in high school. They're not like the biggest dorks on planet Earth, but they're by no means popular. They kind of get picked on and stuff. They find out they can use this vampire and his thirst for blood as vengeance against the people who kind of wronged them in high school. So they start luring their high school bullies and people to this shed so to be food for this vampire. That's the basic premise. There's some other plot devices and some cool character stuff that does happen in the movie, but ultimately, the movie kind of felt like it repeated a lot of scenes. It was kind of spinning its wheels a lot of the time until the final act, which there was a couple cool things. I'm not going to put a super high recommend on this one, but if you're looking for an easy little horror watch, it isn't a bad little movie. Next up, Castle Freak. This is the remake of the Stuart Gordon film that came out in the 80s. The original starred Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton, one of their many collaborations that they did in the 80s. The original movie was a family, a couple and their blind daughter who go to this castle that was inherited by the family. There's this freaky castle freak guy that lives in the castle dungeon, and he's not a very nice guy. They do imply that he has reasons for the things he does and why he does. There's some pretty twisted practical effects and some gore effects in the original movie. The first movie tries to kind of capture that same kind of practical effect magic and some of the same horror elements. They change the narrative slightly. Instead of a family with a blind daughter, it's a boyfriend and his blind girlfriend. There's also a little backstory to that, which adds a little bit of depth to their relationship and to their character. But they go to a castle and they bring their other teen friends to party there. The characters are pretty stereotypical. I couldn't latch on to anybody in the movie. The movie kind of spins its wheels as well for its runtime. I will say the Castle Freak is done pretty well. How they brought him into the story is pretty cool. And at the very end of the movie, the final act has some really cool special effects and kind of like some what the fuck moments that happen at the end. I wish there was more of what happened at the end throughout the movie. Would I recommend this? I don't know, maybe. I didn't, what did I rate this one? 3 stars, so slightly above average, mainly for that last act. I would recommend this for fans of the original, if you just kind of want to watch it to compare to the original Castle Freak, but I don't give a strong recommend for this one. The Dinner Party, I gave this one 2.5 stars, kind of the middle of the road. This movie had a lot of potential. The premise of this movie is a young couple, a guy and his wife. The guy is a writer. He's either a novelist or a playwright, and he's invited to this dinner by these high society types who he thinks can further his writing career. They're all various professionals, whether they're writers or scientists or I don't know, it doesn't really matter. The people who invited them to the dinner have other intentions. They don't intend to help this guy, who you can probably kind of pick up on that as the movie goes on. This movie fell under its own weight of thinking it's a lot more clever, a lot more funny than it really is, with some really hammy performances. There is so much extra dialogue that doesn't push character development, it doesn't push the story. What they were going for could have been really cool. Some high society rich people inviting these kind of normal folks over to their house, bringing them into their world with promises of furthering their careers, having other intentions, is a really cool premise. We've seen it before, but this movie clocks in at 116 minutes. It's almost 2 hours long, and so much of it is just dialogue, pointless dialogue, thinking it's super clever, thinking it's really funny with these people interacting with each other. But by showing so much dialogue, you can tell that the actors are really feeling their performance, and it's just overacted. It's just really kind of silly, and by the end of it, I was just honestly ready for the movie to be over. Edit your movies tighter. That's the one thing that I could say. I even struggle with that with my videos. I understand how tough it is when you fall in love with what you're saying so much. I get it, especially if I wrote a script and I got to watch these actors say the words that I wrote. It'd be really hard to cut that stuff out, and I totally get it. But from a viewer's perspective, gosh, this movie did not even need to be anywhere near 2 hours long. It was just way too much. So like I said, by the end of it, I was ready for it to be over. So I couldn't give a strong recommend for The Dinner Party. Next up, Black Bear. Now this is one of these several movies that they're super hard to explain, and I think if you've seen Black Bear, you'll know what I'm saying. I love everything that Aubrey Plaza has been doing lately, even the Child's Play remake. She did Ingrid Goes West. She's done some really cool dramatic things, and this is probably her best performance yet. I really, really liked Black Bear. The basic on the surface setup is a couple or a family or something has a big property, and they invite people to stay there kind of as like a creative collective to inspire each other, give artists a place to kind of nurture their creativity, and they invite Aubrey Plaza's character, who is a writer-director, there for inspiration to work on her latest project. And this couple that invites her there have a lot of their own problems. There's a lot of like really cringy, awkward scenes between this couple and this fifth wheel character of Aubrey Plaza that are really hard to watch. And then the movie kind of transforms into other things, which I won't spoil. It ends in a different place than you're expecting at the beginning, and it's really hard to explain without just kind of going over play by play the details. If you like kind of ambiguous, dialogue-driven dramas, you'll probably dig this one. If you like Aubrey Plaza, if you're a fan of what she's doing lately, you will definitely like it. She's fantastic in this. But getting ready for some cringeworthy scenes and sort of some ambiguous things that you kind of have to make your own decisions about what's happening, I would recommend Black Bear. It's a really cool movie. Next up, this is another one of about 3 movies that is really difficult to explain. This is one of these movies that you have to really be in the mood for. This movie is extremely bleak. It has a central plot, but not a narrative beginning, middle, and end type of narrative. It's just interwoven tales, kind of Pulp Fiction style, but not near the tone of Pulp Fiction. This is an absolutely humorless movie. There is zero sense of humor to this movie at all. It follows a plot line with a couple of serial killers who invite innocent men and lure her in. It's a couple. His pretty girlfriend, played by she's great. I love the movie she's in. They kind of use her sex appeal to draw guys in and ultimately murder them, and a couple of those guys who they bring in are a couple characters you'll recognize from other plot lines. There's a plot line with this really nasty kind of preacher played by Robert Pattinson. He is fantastic. But the main through line is Tom Holland's character, who's also had a horrible life with his sister, who also had a horrible life. This movie is so bleak. If you're into kind of bleak character-driven dramas that are all like told with these interwoven tales, you'll probably like it. There's a lot of religious themes. Will religion save you? Will being a good person save you? But it's basically the overarching theme is good versus evil. The purest of people, the evilest of people put together, what will win? Well, the devil wins every time. I normally don't like movies that are this bleak. I have really big issues with movies that are praised a lot, honestly. Movies like Moonlight and Room and Precious, these movies where you get done watching it and you're like, why did I just punish myself for 2 hours? Why did I watch this movie? And this movie has a little bit of that, but there's some light at the end of the tunnel that makes the journey worth it, and it's also so beautifully shot and so well acted. This is the first thing I've ever seen Tom Holland in, and I'm kind of glad I haven't seen any of those Spider-Man movies. I don't watch those type of movies, but I'm glad this was the first movie I saw him in because he's really fantastic, so I'll check out his other work. But I would recommend The Devil All the Time, but it's very bleak, very depressing. You got to be in the mood for it. You Are Never Really Here. Now, this is a Joaquin Phoenix movie. If you are a fan of Joaquin Phoenix, if you love the work that he does, you will definitely like this movie. This is another movie that's a little bit ambiguous. I will say this before I continue. If you haven't heard of the YouTube channel Found Flicks, it's basically a ending explained channel. He goes from the beginning of the movie and the ending of the movie. I've used that for a couple movies that I've talked about on these monthly videos. I did it for Black Bear, for The Black Coat's Daughter, which I'm getting into. So if you ever watch a movie and you're a little stuck on how you want to interpret it, I would suggest checking out that channel. He kind of gives you a lot of information on how movies are playing out and kind of makes things a little clearer if you're a big dummy like me who watches a movie and is like, what happened? But anyway, going back to editing, I could have probably edited that all out. Anyway, You Are Never Really Here stars Joaquin Phoenix as a tormented army veteran who finds lost girls. Kind of for people, like if you have a girl that's been abducted or goes missing, he tracks them down. This movie, he's armed with just a hammer, but he's a really dark, tortured character. He lives with his mother, his ailing mother. So in this movie, he's tasked with finding this girl that is the daughter of this politician, and it ends up being a whole conspiracy thing that he gets wrapped up in, and things start spiraling out of control. It's a really well acted movie. It's not a movie that I would go back and watch again just because it's so dark. All Joaquin Phoenix fans should probably watch this movie. Next is Open 24 Hours. This is a premise that I was really interested in. The trailer looked pretty cool too. A girl goes to jail for setting her boyfriend on fire. He doesn't die, but he was really abusive and stuff, so he's in jail, and she's free for her crime of setting him on fire. Although he probably deserved it, she still had to pay the price and go to jail for a little bit. So she gets out and she needs a job, and she gets a job at a gas station. It's open 24 hours. She starts her first shift, and that's where the movie takes us. That's where it leaves us. For the remainder of the movie is her overnight shift, her first shift at this gas station. Then things start to happen. She starts to receive phone calls, starts to have visions. She doesn't know if what she's seeing is real or if it's flashbacks, and she thinks her boyfriend may be after her somehow. I'll leave it there. This movie, again, I hate to use this expression again, but it just kind of spins its wheels with flashbacks the whole time. And by the end, you're kind of like, when they give their twist, you're kind of like, duh. You know, it's too long as well. This movie should have been cut down a little bit. And next up, The Black Coat's Daughter. I gave this one 4 stars. This is a movie that I absolutely loved. It's beautifully shot. It's extremely well acted, and the story is awesome. This is one that I had to do the Found Flicks on. There's something happens towards the end that's sort of a reveal that I obviously won't spoil. Some people did have some issues with the way this movie kind of wrapped itself up. You have a boarding school. It's kind of a religious Catholic boarding school. These 2 girls, winter break comes, and they're not picked up by their parents, and they're like, what do we do? So they end up having to stay there with these 2 nurses or Catholic teachers, I don't know what they are, who people suspect them of being satanic worshipers. As they stay there starts to become this kind of evil overlying presence that starts to take them over. Also happening at the same time, there's a character played by Emma Roberts who has just recently got out of a mental institution, and she's making her way slowly to this same prep school for reasons unknown. I'm gonna be really ambiguous, but this movie is, like I said, it's absolutely beautiful shot. It's definitely a slow burn. There's some some disturbing moments in this movie, some great imagery, some fantastic acting. The director is Oz Perkins, who did, he did Gretel and Hansel, which I recently watched, which was really great too. If you're a fan of slow burn, kind of satanic culty type movies with a twist, you will definitely like this movie. And there is a big turn at the end that you're gonna really, really not expect. Next up is Psycho Goreman. So there's no question about this in my review that I absolutely loved Psycho Goreman. This movie is amazing from beginning to end. I highly suggest that you watch it. I'm gonna point you towards my review. If you haven't seen it, check that out. I'm not gonna talk about it a lot here. You can see I gave it 4 stars. Watch my review, it's great. Not my review, I mean, it's okay, but the movie is great. Next, The Little Things. Gosh, this movie was a hilarious dumpster fire of a movie. This was the first movie I had gone to in the theaters for a really, really long time. Oh, this movie's a mess. This movie I compared to it. I'm just gonna read my review here. The Little Things was about as cleverly written and directed as an early 2000s episode of CSI. Just so excruciatingly average. Although I actually liked Leto's performance, the lines they gave him played like comedy. In fact, a lot of this movie's dialogue and acting played like unintentional comedy. And Malik, how about a ham and a half? Every frame of him on the screen was overacted to the point of absurdity. Like, relax, dude. My buddy and I were laughing all the way through this slog of a movie. And talk about a sleepwalking performance from Denzel. This movie... Was that the last thing? Okay, that's the last. Oh God, I don't even know where to start with this movie. So Denzel Washington is a tortured cop who for some reason left this big fancy police station in the city for this really small town. He goes back to his big city to try to attempt this murder that may be connected to a serial killer. So they're basically trying to track down this serial killer, and he talks to his old cop buddies, and Jared Leto plays this did he do it or didn't he do it type of character who they keep on bringing in for questioning. To see if he made these murders. So basically it's just a murder mystery as they talk to suspects in interrogation rooms, and it's just fucking horrible. This movie's bad. Rami Malek, I didn't care for his performance in Bohemian Rhapsody. I've never seen Mr. Robot. Maybe the way he acts and the way he does his weird face, he can't play normal characters, in my opinion, from what I've seen him in. He's just too intense. His face is just like, his eyes and his weird expressions, like, I just can't take him seriously. He's like a caricature. So him trying to be this detective, I just could not stand looking at his face by the end of this movie. Jared Leto, on the other hand, was awesome. I think even people who weren't a fan of him in Joker or not a fan of him in general, he really transforms himself in this movie as this sunken-eyed, greasy appliance repairman, but he's also a suspect in this murder case, and his performance is really great, but the dialogue they gave to him is just so hilarious. And his character is supposed to be a little like mischievous and playful, but God, the writing is bad in this movie. I mean, if you want to watch this movie, some people are saying it's awesome, but like I said, a sleepwalking performance from Denzel fighting his past. This movie's horrible. I would stay far, far away from The Little Things unless you just want to cringe watch it, but it's bad. So, as I always do, I went way too long on these videos. I try to do very brief explanations on these movies, and I always ramble on. These are just going to be known as my rambling videos, I guess. I don't know. But I like doing them. I do them every month. I'll talk about what I watch. Sometimes I watch, maybe 5 to 10 things. Sometimes I watch 20 to 30 things. So I'll put these all in a playlist. I'm about to redo all of my playlists, so every video I make will fit neatly into a playlist. So this will be in there. But channel, I am talking way too much, guys. I am done. Check out my other videos. I got a lot of Gremlin stuff. I got a lot of reviews and top 10 lists. So if this is your first time here, thanks for watching. If you're still around, there's probably like one person still watching at the end of this video. But like this video, check out my other shit. Stay weird, and until next time, bye.
I love movies. Gosh, I love movies. I love watching them, and I love making them.